Thank you for joining me on the study of Revelation chapter 12, with this being part 2 of our study of this chapter. So last time we finished with verse 10, but maybe I should just go back a bit because I was kind of rushing a bit, which I shouldn't do really when I'm making videos, because maybe that can then actually cause those of you who are watching the videos to have questions if I don't explain things properly because I'm rushing. I just wanted to go back to verse 9. Just deal with verse 9 a bit more, with focusing on the issue of deception here. You see here, maybe we just read the whole verse. And the great dragon, which is Satan, was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. Yeah, it deceives the whole world, not some of the world. But of course, only those who are protected from the devil's deceptions are those who follow what God's word says. As we shall see towards the end of the video, that there's a special group of Christians who are not deceived because they follow what God says. So just on the issue of deception, I went through various other deceptions, including some of and I explained that most of the deception in the world comes through the media, okay? But if we just focus on maybe, I think about 4 or 5 main deceptions that are being used nowadays. Maybe the first one will be climate change. Climate change is a deception, okay? There's no such thing as climate change. But without going into too much detail, because I've dealt with that in some of my other videos, climate change is, once again, it has an element of fear, just like with this pandemics, of which right now they're saying there's potential for another pandemic with this whole hantavirus hoax. But anyway, just going back to climate change, there's an element of fear attached to the issue of climate change, so that because when people are in fear, they don't think rationally and they tend to obey without thinking. So it's about getting the public to be in fear so that they go along with whatever agenda or whatever solution is proposed, to remedy the issue of climate change, which doesn't even exist. So what I wanted to say also about climate change is that there's it comes with Sunday laws, of course, and of course Sunday itself is a deception as well, because it's not there's no commandment in God's word that says we should keep Sunday. That's a day that was kept by pagans. They worship the sun on Sunday. That's why it's called Sunday. And of course, Christmas and Easter also have a connection to sun worship as well. As well as I've noticed also Mother's Day and Father's Day as well. It's always on a Sunday. So very interesting. It's all about promoting sun worship, because in the near future we're going to have laws that will be introduced to coerce the public to rest on Sunday or to go to church on Sunday, which has actually happened in the past. And as you know, history repeats itself. So there's climate change, it's one of the major deceptions. And then we have pandemics. There's no such thing as a pandemic, okay? This is all false. It's all about getting the public to be in fear so that they take, injections, some of which contain nanotech, and some of which are bioweapons. Basically, this is about population reduction. Like Jacques Attali, who is a member of the Bilderberger, he said in his book verbatim, he said the future will be about finding a way to reduce the population. So don't fall for that deception, okay? So another one is aliens. It's quite a big one. That's why we hear a lot of talk about aliens. But of course, and maybe I shouldn't say, of course, maybe some of you don't know this, but like Guy Consolmano said, the Guy Consolmano is a Jesuit. He's the chief astronomer for the Vatican. He said very soon the nations will look towards aliens for their salvation. Now, of course, Jesus will claim that they're Christians, okay, but they're not, because there's no Christian who would make such a statement, okay? Christ is the only savior for mankind, not aliens. So that's why we hear a lot of talk about aliens, and in fact, even recently, President Trump released some formally classified documents for the public. But and some of the times, the timing for the release of documents sometimes it's more of a distraction from something else that's happening. So yeah, but that happened recently. Another one is wars. The real reason for war is never given. For instance, with this recent war with Iran, of which at the moment we're going through a ceasefire, but the war was started, they said, because they were trying to prevent Iran from attaining nuclear weapons. Um, and of course, they'll throw in other things in there, like saying that the regime in Iran is suppressing women's rights, and now they've also started saying that Iran has been terrorizing America's allies for the past 47 years, but they never mentioned that before. It only just came out recently that they are now saying that Iran has been terrorizing other countries for 47 years, and kind of poking uh, the United States, for 47 years. So war is a deception, and of course there's the book which I've referred to a number of times is called The Art of War by they say it's by a Chinese general called Sun Tzu, of course, but Sun Tzu didn't exist. It's actually a Jesuit war manual. The Art of War is a Jesuit war manual. And in that book, it says one of the principles of war is that all warfare is based on deception. So you can't believe anything you're told about war. So for those who are in the military, just be aware that if you go to war, in any war, by the way, it's not just the war we run. Any war, and even previous wars that have taken place, this is all based on deception. Of course, another deception is terrorism. It's never really the reason why we're given for why terrorism is happening is never really the true reason. Even if you look at 9/11, that was a lie. Okay, that was an inside job, which was done to give an excuse for the US to invade other countries, and I've covered all that in my previous videos. So yeah, just wanted to talk about maybe 4 or 5 main deceptions that have been used to bring the world together. Of course, the issue of aliens is one of the things that's going to be used to bring the world together, because they'll say that aliens are here to help us. And there's actually something called Project Blue Beam. I think I've showed it on the previous video. Here. It's Blue Beam Project, or sometimes referred to as Project Blue Beam. This is the one where they'll say that aliens, basically, for instance, when I think it was Alice Bailey who wrote a book called The Externalization of the Hierarchy, where she talks about, and when in the book, the title of the book, when it says the externalization of the hierarchy, is talking about basically when Satan and his demons will expose themselves to mankind, because at the moment they've been hiding, okay, but there will come a time when they will come out in the open. So that these are the so-called aliens that they're talking about are really demons, okay. They will expose themselves to mankind. Like it says here, NASA hires religious experts to prepare humanity for aliens. They have been preparing for this for a very long time. So yeah, just watch out for that. But just moving on from where we left off, we finished off with verse 10. And then verse 11, which I've highlighted in red because it's very important. Speaking of the Christians who are persecuted by Satan and those who work for Satan, verse 11 says, and they overcame him, speaking of the Christians, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. So we overcome the devil and any form of opposition that comes to us, we overcome that by the blood of the Lamb. And of course, the Lamb is Jesus Christ. And by the word of our testimony. See, it says, and they loved not their lives unto death. We should be willing to die for our faith. And like there's a verse that says, "Be thou faithful unto death, and you shall receive a crown of life." In fact, let's go and look that up. I think it's chapter 2. See right here, the very end of verse 10, chapter 2, verse 10. "Be thou faithful unto death, and I'll give thee a crown of life." But the problem with Christians nowadays is that we're very fearful. And you know what Revelation 21 verse 8 says about the fearful. You can go and read that in your own time if you haven't already read that. Verse 12, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea." Why should the heavens rejoice? Because the devil and his angels were thrown out. "For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath." This is after it said, "Woe to the inhabitants of the earth. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." And sometimes we think that, from studying biblical genealogies, we know that it's been about roughly 6,000 years since this rebellion has been going on here on this earth. And we may consider that to be a long time, but it says to the devil it's a short time, because time, when it comes to time, is reckoned differently when it applies to God, when it comes to angels. Okay, we have short lives. Someone lives up to 100 years, it's said that they've lived a long time, but to God, a day is like 1,000 years, okay, and 1,000 years is like a day. And verse 13, and it says, "And when the dragon," and we read earlier that the dragon is, sorry, that was in verse 9, I'm not going to go back there, but in verse 9, it says that the dragon is Satan, okay, "And when the dragon saw that he was cast out unto the earth, he persecuted the woman." Remember last time in the last video I said that a woman is a church. Excuse me. So the devil persecutes God's church, which brought forth the man-child. And of course, remember that the church can be a good church or a bad church, okay? But here he's talking about the woman that's being referred to is the woman who's the main character in chapter 12. It's God's church, whereas the devil's church is spoken about in Revelation chapter 17. So the devil persecutes God's church. It says this church is the one that brought forth the man-child, speaking of Jesus, okay? Because think of ancient Israel, the Israelites. That was God's church at that time, okay? And at the time when Jesus was born, the other tribes had been destroyed. There was only one tribe left, and that was the tribe of Judah. Okay, and Jesus was brought forth by the church, which at that point was the tribe of Judah, if that makes sense. Verse 14, "And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time, and times and half a time from the face of the serpent." We'll deal with all this, but the woman, once again, is God's church, was given 2 wings of a great eagle. That's not literal, this is all symbolic, okay? She was given a way of escape so that she could go into the wilderness. And what is the wilderness? It's a place that is sparsely populated compared to the sea. The sea or water represents a heavily populated area. So the woman found a place which was not heavily populated, where she could hide. It says for how long? For a time, times and half a time. And we have dealt with this many times. This is referring to the 1,260 years. A time is 360 days, which becomes years in prophetic time. Okay, times is 360 times 2, and half a time is half a year. Okay, so when you add all that up, it comes up to 1,260 years, and these numbers are actually These numbers, this prophetic time, which adds up to 1,260 years, I believe it's referred to about 7 times in the book of Revelation, and in the book of Daniel as well. Sometimes it's actually referred to as 1,260 years or days rather, but then we convert it to years because it's prophetic time. And then sometimes it's referred to as 42 months. So what is the starting point for the 1,260 years? The starting point is 538 AD, which is the year when the Pope at the time was given full authority over. He was made the head of all churches worldwide, okay, by an emperor called Justinian. And even if we question that year, someone could say, "Oh, you've just plucked that up from the air." You know, the year 538. There's no mention of the year 538 in the scriptures, but we know that the 1,260 years ended in 1798 when the Pope was arrested. So that means the power of the Pope was diminished or taken away in 1798. If we then subtract 1,260 years from 1798, we still come back to 538. Okay, so that's how we know that those dates are correct. Verse 15, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water. Remember, water represents people, nations, multitudes, and tongues. Or it just refers to those who are working for Satan. It says, the serpent, which is Satan, cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman. So Satan sends people to try and destroy God's church, that he might cause it to be carried away of the flood, so to destroy God's church. Okay, that's what it does. So this woman here who went in the wilderness, it represents the Waldenses. You know, the true Christians from Italy and France who were persecuted during the Dark Ages, which obviously covers the 1,260 years. And obviously there was another group called the Albigenses. So there were the Waldenses and the Albigenses. Of course, we had the churches in Africa as well that kept God's commandments, and we had the churches in Ireland and in Scotland, and we have the pilgrims that went to America to escape persecution from Europe. This is what this is talking about. It's talking about the Christians who fled persecution, so that they could worship God in peace. Okay, but the devil sent out armies to try and destroy God's church. And when you read, if you read James Aitken Wiley's book, which I showed you last time, the history of the Waldenses, you'll see that even after the Waldenses went into the wilderness, they were still followed by armies that were sent out to kill them by the papacy, and many thousands of them were killed, by the way. So prophecy, is very accurate in the way it's predicted the future. Verse 16, and the earth helped the woman. The earth is the opposite of the sea. Okay, it's a place that's not heavily populated. It helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So those people that were sent by Satan to destroy God's church, it's like they failed to destroy God's church because the woman went into a place which wasn't heavily populated, and she found protection there. Okay, verse 17, and the dragon, Satan, was wroth. Wrath just means angry. Was angry with the woman. Satan is angry with God's church, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. What does this word remnant means? It means the remainder, those who remain. So over time, the saints die, they're killed, they're persecuted. Some may even die from old age, but over time, there's a small remnant who still keep God's commandments, as we shall see here. It says which keep God's commandments, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So this is still going on. This war that's going on between the Satan against God's church is still going on, because the remnant is a small number who are left of those who still keep the commandments of God, the same commandments that were kept by the early church. Okay, we're not talking of Sunday. Sunday is not part of God's commandments. We're talking of the Sabbath, which is kept on the seventh day of the week, which is Saturday, and all the other commandments, by the way, because as soon as you start saying that God's true church keeps the Sabbath, which is Saturday, there's some Christians who think that that's referring to only one commandment out of the 10. No, all the commandments are supposed to be kept. In James 2 verse 10, we read that if you break one commandment, you've broken all of them, because they come as a set. Okay, so this is one of the ways to recognize, or to identify rather, God's true church. God's true church keeps all the commandments, including the seventh day Sabbath, which is Saturday. Okay, so the devil is angry with God's true church, and the God's true church is identified by the fact that they keep the commandments of God. So this war is still ongoing. Yeah, so that's the end of the of Revelation chapter 12. I hope I've explained it well enough for you to understand. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section. And thank you for joining me on this video, and I'll see you in the next one.